Now, although Prime Minister Bennett and other top Israeli government figures have returned home from Glasgow, other Israeli officials, entrepreneurs, and activists are still there conducting business and advocating for environmental change. One of them is Yosef Abramowitz, president and CEO of Energia Global Capital and a board member of Life and Environment and a pioneer of solar energy in Israel. He joins us now from Glasgow, Scotland. And Yossi, I see you're on point in your fashion choices with the green tartan scarf, of course, green and tartan, so combining. But let me ask you, we spoke before the conference about your hopes of what you would see and hear there. So far, what's your impression? Are you pleased, disappointed, or somewhere in between from what you've been hearing in Glasgow?
So we're very early in the process. I remember I was on the Israeli negotiating team in Paris, and the first couple of days when the world leaders were making promises, we're all excited, and then the bureaucrats took over and expectations fell, and it was only in the final days was there an international agreement. We've just finished day 3 here, and on the one hand, you know, we have all these promises that are made. There's big sums of money being mentioned. You know, in Paris, we were talking about billions, and today, for the first time, we're hearing about trillions of dollars that will be needed and pledged to be able to make this net zero energy transition. I have to say, on the Israeli side, the prime minister, he was in front of 120 world leaders, more than at the United Nations General Assembly. And the question going in was, who's his audience? Is he going to speak to the Democrats, you know, and Biden and the EU who are looking for climate goals? Is he going to speak to the voters from the who voted for change in Israel's policies, including energy policy? Or is he essentially sending a market signal to the gas companies? And he goes up there, and it turns out he had an audience of one. And his name was Bill Gates, who he met the next day singing the praise of innovation, which is great. As a solar entrepreneur, I'm all in favor of that. But what's important is what the prime minister did not say, and that's what's deeply troubling.
Well, what did he not say? Because he has committed Israel to net zero emissions by 2050.
Yeah, but 2050, you got to be kidding. So what do we have any plan to even do that by 2050? But that's not what's important. 2030 goals are the most important. 2050, everyone's committing to, because they're kicking the can down the road to their successors, you know, politically. It means they don't have to take any tough choices. What he didn't say, he did not declare a climate emergency, which many Western countries have done. He did not commit to a climate law, which everybody basically has done except for Israel and Turkey and other a couple of holdouts. He did not commit to new goals. You know, the UN has asked everyone to reduce their emissions by 50% or so by 2030. But he did commit to the methane pledge, which is great, except Israeli emissions are going to go up 16% by 2030 rather than reduce in half. So from a content-related thing, the environmental community and those who voted for change didn't see it yet. The gas companies have their market signal, which is that looks like their monopoly is going to be protected.
I wanted to ask you, because listen, Israel's carbon footprint is not, in terms of nations, is not certainly understating things to say it's not among the biggest. It's not even clear that 2050 pledge that you feel insufficient is going to be reached by consensus there, especially countries like China and Russia, and President Biden has already criticized them for that.
Yeah, look, it's a big disappointment that the Brazil, China, Russian leaders are not here. On the other hand, Brazil, you know, is just burning up the Amazon, letting the loggers, you know, run free, essentially. They did commit now to net zero. China, look, they have a pollution problem. You know, they have to close schools because of the particles in the air and things like that. And they do have an aggressive renewables program. Russia, I'm not so sure about. But look, every country has to do its part, and we're not exempt from that. And in fact, according to the State Controller's report last week, is that our emissions per capita is among the top 10 in the world. And so we're essentially bad actors when it comes to this, and we all need to play a role. Now, Israeli innovation, Israeli technology is great. I think we have a great market opportunity here. But in classic fashion, we don't practice these things at home. And if we really want to sell our new technology and our innovation abroad, I think we have to get our own house in order.
All right, well, we'll be discussing that in just a bit. Yosef Abramowitz there at COP26 in Glasgow. Thank you for joining us on i24 News.